If you want, Dr. Sabri, I can try again to share my my presentation.
I think I have moved, but the thing is, why it is not showing at your end, I don't know.
Okay,
So the
I try
I can
again,
see
just a
the
moment.
scope of I can see this scope of problem.
Okay, just a moment, I try again.
Okay.
Okay. But I can do this because you are the organizer, and I can do this. I can do the share of the screen. I go on, no problem. Well, which is the scope of the problem? Child maltreatment is a global problem. How can I say? I try again. Oh, well. Okay.
It is now. It is. You can try again.
Okay. Now we can see. Try again. Just a moment.
What you need to do is select the tab.
Okay.
Don't worry, I will do it for you. Don't worry, I will do it for you.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Let me do it for you, doctor. Please go ahead.
Okay. Now we can see.
Yes, I think.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Just we can go. Oh, okay. Well, child maltreatment is a global problem, a global plague, and is a complex phenomenon to study because there are different aspects that we can consider. We have different definition for to study and this phenomenon, and the type of child maltreatment are so different. We have also different coverage and the quality of official statistics, for example. And often we have also different coverage and quality of survey with self-reports from victims, parents, and also to caregivers. And another important aspect of this plague of this global problem is that every year there are an estimated 150 homicide deaths in children under 18 years of age, some of which are likely due to child maltreatment. And this is a global plague to must be combated. What about child abuse? Well, in literature we can find different kind of definition. To define the maltreatment of children, it is useful to refer to the definition of the World Health Organization, and shared that to the world, which includes this kind of means. Child maltreatment is the abuse and neglect of people under 18 years of age, and we can find different forms of maltreatment, physical, emotional treatment, sexual abuse, neglect, or negligent treatment, or commercial or exploitation that impact negativity in the life of the children. And then we can have four types of child maltreatment: physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological, that we have also two types of psychological abuse: emotional or mental, and also neglect. In according to literature, we also have a different conceptual definition, but all type of definition linked with these forms of means. Hear some noises. Okay. We can have different form of physical, emotional maltreatment, sexual abuse, neglect, with impact in important way of in the life of children. We can have form of exploitation that impact in actual or potential harm in the children health, and impact also in the development on in the dignity in the context of a relationship and in the responsibility, in the trust or power, and in the life of the children. Well, about when we talk about child abuse, we can talk about a form of prevalence of child maltreatment, but we talk about a particular form of forms of abuse. Well, in a particular case, we have 36% of children that are psychological abuse. In 23% in the case we have children physically abused. In the slide, we can see that 18% of girls are sexually abused, and 18% of boys are instead sexually abused. And at the end, in 16% of children are instead neglected. These are the data of prevalence of this phenomenon in the global context. But what about the general criteria of the maltreatment? What does it mean? Well, we have different means about these terms. We can refer about active conduct, beatings, injuries, sexual act, over grooming, or also omissive conduct, for example, carelessness, neglect, abandonment. But an important thing is that the absence of physical traumatic evidence doesn't mean that we have not maltreatment. Maltreatment are then acts and deficiencies that seriously disturb children and boys and girls, obviously, and treating their bodily integrity, physically, emotionally, and also in impact intellectually and morally in their life. Another important things, maltreatment, we can define this term as an Unforgettable Childhood Experiences Fatality in 2001 defined this concept about unforgettable childhood experiences as the case in point, situation experienced in childhood defined as a negative accident, more or less chronic than that ideal evolutionary path for the child, on the plane both personal and relational. Introduce also a classification that differentiates direct violence from indirect violence. And obviously, this kind of phenomenon is a phenomenon of abusive naturally that if experienced early and repeatedly, especially in the primary care relationship, impact negatively, and especially if in situation with we have deficiency of absence of a protective and resiliency factor in the child. And this situation produce physically interpersonal trauma, for example. Well, we speak about. I speak about the classification of Felitti. This author in 2001 introduced this kind of classification: direct violence and indirect violence. For direct violence, we means sexual abuse, physiological abuse, physical and also physical and emotional neglect. Instead, for indirect violence, we can means different forms of violence um, that we can find in the family context, in a particular situation as alcoholism or drug addiction of parents, and also in psychiatric illness and different situation of violence, and also, for example, assisted violence. We can find this kind of different form of violence experienced in the context family. And obviously, these different situations, these different conditions that can lead to trauma for in the context of childhood. Well, what about child abuse? We can have a different classification, and the classification are so important for the professional, but it's important to consider that often for the child, for the victims, we can have not only what kind of one form of abuse, but we have different form with the different various abuse, which therefore lead to a form of multiple victimization. And this is so important to consider for prevent, but also to contrast and to adopt different form to protect to cure the children. Well, according to the literature, we can find different form of child abuse or maltreatment. We can have physical abuse, emotional and physiological abuse, sexual abuse, and obviously neglect. But when we talk about physical abuse, we talk about what? Well, we talk about a form of intentional abuse. Intentional form of abuse that use a physical violence against a child that can cause harm to the health, survival, and development or dignity of the child. We can find different form of this violence. We can have hit, beat, kick, shake, bite, strangle, scald. We can have burn, poison. We can use the perpetrator can use burn, poison, suffocate the victim, and often this kind of violence against children find realization in the family context, and is inflicted with the aim of punishment by the perpetrator versus of the children. Another important aspect to consider is that this kind of lesion can be affected by different organs and system, configuring different clinical picture. For example, we can have fractures, skin lesions, cranial concussion, and deep visual damages, and pose complex questions of differential diagnosis. And also we can have a particular form of physical abuse, for example, shaken baby syndromes, which is the violent shaking of the baby, usually under 24 months of age, that causes serious injuries in young children. The severity of the physical consequences is favored by the head proportionally larger than the rest of the body and by cerebral immaturity. And children lose consciousness in the immediacy of the event, described as ascendently by parents or guardians due to an alteration of cerebral perfusion of hypoxia ischemia type rather than as a consequence of diffuse external damage. And these both circumstances can cause death in the children, sorry. And this is several causes of physical abuse that can result in death of children, for example. Then we can have also physical abuse. Another form of child abuse is emotional and physiological abuse. This kind of violence is characterized by the repeated and continuous physiological pressure, emotional blackmail, form of indifference by perpetrator, sorry, form of denigration and devaluation. And this type of violence can damage or inhibit the development of cognitive emotional skill in the child, and impact negatively in the intelligence, attention, perception, and also the develop of the memory. This form of abuse fall into this category, then includes the failure of parent caregiver to provide a specific and appropriate and supportive environment. Well, another form of child abuse is the sexual abuse, and this kind of violence is a form of violence that involvement intentional and interpersonal form of violence that we can find in by the perpetrator in a minor having forced of or developmentally inappropriate sexual experiences, and this kind of experiences may not involve graphic violence or injury, but they can occur also without physical contact, and this is a particular aspect that we have to consider when we visit or when we have an approach with the child, with the children. we can have different type of sexual abuse and this kind of violence depending on the type of relationship with between the abuser and the child. We can have three different forms: intra-family, peri-family, and extra-family. Intra-family sexual abuse is implemented by members of the nuclear or extended family. Peri-family abuse is carried out by person known to the child, including, for example, those to whom he is entrusted for reason of care, of education, for example. Um, the extra family abuse, if when we have the abuser, for example, is a figure extraneous to the family environment and to the child. And sexual abuse is rarely a violent act that leaves physical marks, and medical evaluation is only an often non-decisive aspect of a complex diagnostic path that must necessarily be multidisciplinary. This is so important to consider in this particular phenomenon. And in fact, multidisciplinary assessment is so important. We have to consider sign analysis, physical, psychological, social, as well as stories and spontaneous statements of the alleged victim is so important. Well, we have also another aspect of sexual abuse. We have the sexual exploitation. In this type of violence, we have a form of behavior of the perceiver money or other benefits by different kind of individuals or criminal groups organized derived from sex tourism, child prostitution, child pornography, and another form of sexual exploitation is, for example, online abuse. We can have grooming, online sexual abuse, documented with video image and spread of the net, cyber sex, setting, etc. Sexual exploitation is a particular type of sexual abuse, and we can have child pornography, that we have any representation by any means of a minor, of a child in a specific sexual activity, real or simulated, or any representation of the sexual organs of a minor for mainly sexual purpose. Child prostitution, for example, instead we have when the child is forced to commit child abuse and maltreatment indication and recommendation and children maltreatment indication, sorry. And we have when the child sexual acts in exchange for money or other benefits. We can have also sex tourism. In this case, we have sex tourists, and this kind of perpetrators is defined as someone who, in order to practice sex with children, organize holiday or work, for example, holiday periods in countries that not only tolerate child prostitution, but often propagandize it to attract tourists and thus collect hard currency. Then we have online abuse, and this is so important, especially in this context, in this global context. Then we have then when we the technology is so important in our world in this moment, and online abuse means any form of child sexual abuse perpetrated through the internet, and the documentation of images, videos, recordings of explicit sexual activity, real or simulated, for example, is no different for these kind of forms. And the forms of online sexual abuse against children includes offline sexual abuse. We can have groomings. We have, for example, cyber sex, in which the adult and the child perform sexual action exclusively via the web. We can have sexting, in which two or more children consensually produce and exchange sexually messages. This is the different form, for example, the actually sexual abuse. Then another form, oh sorry, I can, okay. Another form of child abuse is neglect, and this is a form, a particular condition in which parents or person legally responsible for the child or the adolescent do not adequately provide for his physical needs, psychic and affective in relation to the developmental stage. We have serious carelessness, neglect. Serious neglect means any act of omission that resulting from a serious inability of the parents to provide for the child needs. We can have also inappropriates in the provision of care, a form of anachronism. We can have also other cure in this form of child abuse, and this form of cure occurs when physical care is characterized by persistent and excessive medicalization by a parent, generally by the mother, for example, and the following four are distinguished. We can have medical shopping by proxy, and this is a condition in which one or both parents very concerned about the states of health of the child due to the most signs, symptoms, subject him to useless and excessive medical consultation. We can have also chemical abuse, substances or drugs that may be harmful are administered to the child by the parents on their own initiative in order to cause symptoms that attract the attention of health workers. Then we can have also Munchausen syndrome by proxy, when a parent, generally the mother, attributes to the child non-existent disease and the result of a distorted belief about his own health, then transferred to the child, who substantially tends to collude with this attitude by simulating the symptoms of disease. And the diagnosis is often difficult and late. And also, here are is so important the multidisciplinary work of the healthcare, and not also of the healthcare, but all professional for the care of the child, of the children, for the correct diagnosis of the child abuse. Then we can have also other form of child abuse. We can have the witnessed violence. This form of violence against children means any form of maltreatment implemented through acts of violence, physical, verbal, physiological, sexual, and also economical, realized by parent of particular person in the context, in the family context, or other emotionally significant adults and children. Then we can have also human trafficking or labor trafficking. We can have this kind of violence when the children are forced to work for little or no pay, or domestic servitude, for example. Child trafficking is a form of modern day slavery, and in this case, children are trafficked for purposes such case in point, domestic labor, armed groups, criminal activity, and even adoption, for example. This is another aspect of child abuse. Well, other form, we can have also bullying and cyberbullying. Bullying is an offensive and aggressive behavior that we have versus a single individual or several people that implement repeatedly over time different behavior versus the victim. This is a behavior, a form of behavior intentionally characterized by intentionally predetermination, repetitiveness, satisfaction, imbalance of power. Then we have also cyberbullying. This is a form of violence characterized by aggressive, intentional act conducted by an individual or also a group that use different form, also electronic contact, and these form of violence are repeated over time against one victim who cannot easily defend himself. This is a particular characteristic of cyberbullying. But what about the risk factor of a child, the child abuse? Well, risk factor about this phenomenon. To understand the child abuse phenomenon, we have to consider also risk factor, but also the other preventive factors, protective factors, sorry. Violence against children is a multifaceted problem which causes of the individual, close relationship, community, and social levels. Important risk factors are related to individual related, society related, community related, and relationship related. Individual level, we are also instead different levels: society, community, relationship, and individual. At the individual level, we have biological and personal aspects such as sex and age, lower level and education, low income, having a disability or mental health problems, identifying as or being identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, harmful use of alcohol and drugs, and history exposure to violence, for example. In the close relationship level, we have lack of emotional bonding between children and parents and caregiver. We have poor parenting practices. In the community level, we can have poverty in high population density, for example. These are aspects to consider here, because before I said I underlined the importance of the multidisciplinary aspect in the diagnosis of the child abuse. In the society level, we can have social and gender norms that create a climate in which violence is normalized. For example, we can have health, economic, educational, and social policies that maintain economic, gender, and social inequalities. We can have many aspects to consider. It is a complex phenomenon to consider, very, very complex. Well, what about the risk factor? Well, we have different factors, risk factor to consider. We can have different percentage, externalized behavior problems, intellectual disability, and this kind are linked with the individual factor, risk factor. We can have are rates of violence or immigration, for example, and this are correlated with the community aspect. We can have low self-esteem, employed for unwanted pregnancy, poor impulse control, mental neurological disorder, etc. We have different factors correlated with child abuse. And another important aspect to consider is that the government strategies are essential to combat the phenomenon. We cannot to fight this phenomenon if we cannot pay attention to the right. This right to consider are the right to an adequate standard of living, the right to social security, the right to education, and the right to equality and freedom from discrimination. These rights are so important, and these represent an important aspect to prevent the child abuse. This is also there are also the protective factor and the disease factors important to consider for to avoid child abuse. Stable attachment of the children to the adult family members, high levels of attention from the father during childhood, not being close to peers who commit crimes or abuse substances. This is important to consider a social context near the family of the context near close to the child, to the children, a warm and supportive relationship with an offensive parent. It's so important to consider the absence of stress deriving from abuse suffered, and also to live in a community with strong social cohesion. This is so important. Obviously, to have a stable family unit. Child abuse and consequences of this global plague. We can have a problem related to language skill and verbal, quindi problems developing intergenerational transmission of violence, also post-traumatic stress disorder, different forms of long-term maladaptation to the different contexts. We can have also formal different kind of depression. We can have also cognitive and behavioral difficulties. We can have also form of bullying and delinquency, and different kind of relationship distortion. But it's so important to consider that child abuse as social and health cost. This kind of violence impact negatively in the society, and it has a massive impact not only in the social context, also in the national context and the level, economic level. It's so important to consider. What about the consequence of this kind of violence? Well, about the health problems, we can find poor daily functioning, mental and neurological disorder. We can have for example, excessive health services use. In the social and behavioral problems, we can have attachment problems. We can have poor self-regulation or low self-esteem. Instead, we can also have subsequent violent victimization, for example. In the context of the impaired cognitive and academic performance, we have cognitive impairment, poor academic performance, poor languages functioning. In the side of the economic problem, we can have instead work absenteeism, lower socioeconomic status, gambling, This is another form of addiction, for example, can cause addiction. And employment, this is so important, that impacts negativity in the social context and also in the national context. What about the clinical and evolutionary aspect? Well, this kind of abuse is a form of a violence that developing personality of a child, causing many cases and consequences in the short term, but also a medium and long term in the growth process, especially in cases where experience takes on a traumatic character. The onset of discomfort or a real disturbance starting from a condition of abuse or serious neglect is interpreted as the outcome of a complex process linked to the balance between protective factor and risk factor. This is so important to consider. This is so important. These aspects are so important to consider. And also, again, physiological and biochemical system of child can be impaired, leading to poor resilience and greater tendency to collapse in the case of subsequent stressful situation. This is the principles of multi-causality. Then can cause severe impact, massive impact of the clinical and evolutionary aspect of the lifelong child, in the lifelong anche health of the children. And this is important also for the equifinality system, and there are different paths that leads of the same result. There are different combination of risk factors that can lead of the same kind of element. What can we have? What kind of consequence we can find about child abuse? Well, the abuse remains undetected and undetected. The mistreatment is repeated over time and carried out with violence and coercion. These are the damage caused as with more. We can have the protective response to the victim and his family or social context in delayed. We can have traumatic experience that remains unexpressed or unprocessed, for example. The physical or physiological and sexual dependence between the victim and the abuser is low, and the bond between the victim and the abuser is of a family nature. And the stage of development and the risk factor present in the victim favor an evolution negative is so important to consider. We have also the different kind of perpetrators. The perpetrator can be parents and other family members, caregivers, friends, strangers, other children, healthcare workers, for example, acquaintances, other in authority, and employers. What about the prevention and contrast strategies? Well, these are so important. The evidence, there are evidence that and also the scientific literature to state with full confidence that child maltreatment can be prevented. And the World Health Organization also state that preventing violence requires an interdisciplinary system approach that develop action aimed at preventing the occurrence of violence against children with a different approach: primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention, and enhancement of factor protection rather than the risk reduction. This is so important, for example. And health promotion is the process that allows people to increase control of themselves and improve their health, and the promotion of well-being represent a first level for a global intervention with a high preventive value. And this is what World Health Organization underlined to do, for example. There are 7 strategies for ending violence against children. This is more important to prevent and contrast this kind of phenomenon. Implementation and enforcement of law is so important. We can have, for example, action finalized to banning violent, discipline, restricting access to alcohol and firearms. We can have norm and values change, for example, altering norms that condone the sexual abuse of girls or aggressive behavior among boys. What about safe environments? We can have behaviors such as identifying neighborhood or spots for violence and then addressing the local causes through problem-oriented policy and other intervention. Parental and caregiver support. Well, we can have providing parents training to young first-time parents, for example, income economic straightening. In this case, we can have particular acts such as microfinance and gender equality training. We can have also activity finalized to response services providing, and also education and life skill such as ensuring that children attend school and providing life and social skill training. Again, what about the child to protect what about the protection measure to protect child? Well, World Health Organization say that are more important this kind of action: monitoring the global magnitude and characteristics of violence against children, maintaining an electronic information system, developing and disseminating evidence-based technical guidance documents, regular publishing global status reports, supporting countries and partners in implementing evidence-based prevention and response strategies, and so important, collaborating with international agencies and organizations to reduce this global plague for eliminating this kind of violence. As I said, is so important the multidisciplinary approach. It is also important to adopt a behavior aimed at protecting the child in case of suspected abuse. Have a suspicious attitude and investigate where we think there may be a probable condition of abuse. Correctly collect all the evidence and collect the elements useful for the construction of the case. Have a deep respect for the dignity of people in generally and especially for the child. This is the important aspect to consider by the multidisciplinary professional. We can have different situations. We can have emergency intervention and programmable intervention, but the important aspect is the multidisciplinary approach. At the end, every role is crucial in prevention. This consideration of Frederick Rogers, in my opinion, is so important. We live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's easy to say it's not my child, not my community, not my war, not my problem. Then there are those we see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes. Thank you so much for the attention.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gasipina, for this nice lecture on the child abuse criminology and very informative. So now we move on with our next presenter, Dr. Richa. Dr. Richa is the Organizing Secretary and Professor Head and at the Department of Forensic Medicine, Sarojini Naidu Medical College, Agra. So, Dr. Richa, can you go?
Yeah, yeah, I'm over here. So please, you can share the slides from your side.
Yes, yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible. Is it visible?
No, presently it's not visible.
Maybe it will.
Yeah, it's visible. मैं
Okay.
अपने ले रही हूँ ना, ये अपने ले रही
Please go
हूँ।
ahead.
हाँ, 1 second. So very warm welcome to all. Very warm welcome to all the delegates present in the online session. To start with the online, my PPT, actually I proposed the topic to present an overview over the Child Abuse and the POCSO Act 2012, which is prevalent in and implemented in India all over India. Next slide, please. When we consider the term abuse and we want to see the present scenario which is prevalent in the or present scenario which is in the India, we will see that almost 140 per 1,000, 14% of child are of age group 3 to 18, which are abused in one or of the other form in a way like kicked, bitten, punched, hit with objects, beaten up or threatened with a knife or a gun in 1 year. 85% are younger than 5 years and 45% are infants. That means they are under 1 years of age. So seeing the huge percentage of the children which are facing the abuse, this topic holds a high priority in the present scenario. About 10% of injuries in emergencies were due to abuse among under 5 years. 15% admitted patients were due to burn abuse, and 50% of fractures were seen under age 1 year due to abuse. Death rate were recorded as around about 6% due to the child abuse cases. And when you see the abusers, you will see that 55% were seen to be immediate family members which were perpetrators. Father, mother, boyfriend, 9%, boyfriend of mother, 9%. Babysitter were involved to the percentage of 8%, stepfather, 5%, and no blood relation has been left, which has been used, which were seen in the form of abusers in this age group. Right? When we see the types of the abuse, we will say that it can be of physical abuse, it can be emotional, psychological abuse, it can be neglect of any type, and sexual abuse in the last. When we consider the physical abuse things, we consider all types. And now, when we see that what abuse and neglect is it gender bias? Is it religion bias? No, they are the abusers belong of all community or religion, at any case of education, occupation, or social economic status. But yes, they are more seen among the poor because there is an increased number of crisis situation in life, so they are more prone towards these abnormal behaviors. They are low poor socioeconomic resources for support in stress system, and they hold it as a stress relaxer or a stress reliever to just throw over their tantrums over the younger age group. Increased violence in neighborhood, the background of the society in which they are raised up, this it severely affects the mindset of a person. Teenage and single parenthood and substance abuse is very common. Those seen in abusers, they are very commonly seen have abused to some or other substance. When substance abuse, we say that there are 90% abusing parents have neither psychotic nor criminal responsibility. The previous slide, please. It's on auto run mode. Yeah. Stop you. More than 90% of abusing parents have neither psychotic or criminal responsibility, but they were lonely, unhappy. There was a personality defect. It may be young, it may be a single parent, it may be an unplanned pregnancy. They didn't like the pregnancy, they didn't like the appearance of the child, they didn't like some toilet training, they didn't like that child was not adopting the way they wanted to train the children. And that promoted them to their abusive nature. Right? 10 to 40% abusing parents were themselves abused as children. So this genetic lineage we will call, or we will say a criminal psychology will passes on from generation to generation. When somebody faces some awkward conditions, awkward situations, or abuse, that leaves a long-lasting impact over that person. It leads either to the depression when that child grows up, either it goes into a depressive form or it will go into a criminology psychology type. So when we think of raising or improving our society, we should think about changing the child perspective, taking it to childhood. How was the childhood? When you see any criminal minded and we trace the childhood, you will see somewhere in the childhood he had an impression, either he saw it behind in the background, he saw it in the abusing parents, or he himself had faced that abuse and it was just a reaction of the childhood which came in the adulthood. Now, a form of physical neglect is very common is nutritional neglect. This may be in sometimes gender bias. In India, basically in our country, the male part has been promoted and girls or females have been facing a nutritional neglect. It not only this, it can be a son, stepson, which may be facing a nutritional neglect. Second type of neglect is a medical neglect. Some, due to some or other reasons, parents promotes one child to provide a medical facility and other person has been neglected. That is me a stepchild or a lagging behind relationship. Now, failure to provide schooling, adequate clothing, protection for environmental hazards like heat and cold. There was a case in which a child was left over outside the home for a punishment for not drinking milk in the night for the whole night, and it was a cold winter, and that child suffered fatal cold stroke due to the winter and the cold weather. So, like this treatment, the abuse is not only considered should be considered only the sexual abuse, but it can be also a neglect in the form of physical variation. Neglect is roughly 50% of the total cases and accounts for more deaths than the physical abuse. Now, what are the emotional abuse? Emotional abuse includes the intentional verbal or behavioral acts which results in some or about some adverse emotional consequences. Means it affects the emotions of the you are not abusing the physically, but by saying something, by saying abusive words, by verbally, by taunting, by literally daily taunting, you are shifting the person and the child is bearing an emotional abuse daily. That would ultimately rejection. It can be a rejection, it can be a scapegoat assignment. A child is targeted and a personal or all the jobs of household chores are given personally to that child. That is also a type of emotional abuse. Isolation, isolating the child in a specific room. Okay, you will be kept over here for the overnight for this punishment. Daily that punishment is given. That isolation is also a type of emotional abuse and it will affect the emotional growing of that child. Emotional neglect. One is an emotional abuse, one is an emotional neglect. One child is favored, loved, cared, pampered, and the other is neglected. That neglection is also a type of abuse. and it is most commonly seen when it is a stepfather or a stepmother case. Right? A typical disorder was seen as a Munchausen disease by proxy. Medications and toxins may be given intentionally to poison the child, but in this specific syndrome, the parents have the motivation, or they are motivated to, or they are forced, or they are physically they are emotionally bonded to attract medical attention from hospitals, either for just for attention seeking behavior, or it may be for the monetary terms, and for seeking the attention they keep their children neglected or abused or diseased in some or the other way. In very few cases, and in the poor socioeconomic cases, status, this type of syndrome is seen, specifically in the beggars as children. They are specifically injured and had damaged or fractured legs or uh, amputated for the purpose of increasing the monetary terms. So in that case, this is the types of abuse which we see in poor status persons. Battered baby child syndrome, it is a physical injury which is totally unexplainable, implausible, and existence of bruise, scars, fractures at different stage of healing will be seen. And they should be noted down when they are by the healthcare providers in the first instance. They are highly suggestive of abuse when there are multiple injuries at different stage of healing, because it is a daily intake. Every weekly he is shattered, or he is tampered, he is beaten up, he is burned. That these childs should be noted down. Burns, 10% of cases out of total case of abuse are due to burn injury. Burn is not due to a high flame or inflammable symptoms. It may be a minute things like the cigarette or some press, heated press, or they are just touch up and heated press are given. It may be shape. The shape and pattern of burn is very much diagnosed in this pattern on the forensic aspect. The geometric pattern we can identify, and we can suggest the object which was used for burning. Cigarette burn are very common, and even jokingly they are taken. These are the burn marks, some burn marks, and they are so typical. The impression marks of these burns are so typical that just by seeing the impression of this, the object which was used is very much evident. These casting iron, usually just for a tantrums, for a poor, for irritation, for even the parents get irritated for some small and small deeds, or for in the poor economic status, and they just take out the irritation by providing a burning the site at the site of arms, legs, and these effect and these burn injuries should be noted down when they come to the doctor, because they do not tell. They are themselves the blood relation who are abusing the child, and even the child will not disclose these injuries. But the pattern of injuries are very much typical, and if a healthcare provider is sensitive and sensible, these injuries he should note down, and he should take care of that. They might be due to child abuse, and such cases should be reported to the police with immediate action. Right? Head injury. Head injury are 95% serious intracranial injuries in infants are due to abuse, neglect. They are not taking care of the infants properly. And in 25.9% of cases, abuse is injury to head, face, or cranial content, which may result into severe coma, convulsion, apnea. Shaken baby syndrome is also a very commonly seen habit of intentionally or unintentionally, just for a joking sake, that the small infants they are shaken up severely. Sometimes cases have been reported that he was the child infant was severely crying in the night, and what to do, we did everything, now he is not conscious, and they see that what they will result is in the bleeding of the retina, coma, convulsions will be seen, and edema of the brain will be seen. And these are due that they get irritated, they shake the baby, okay, okay, sleep, sleep, now sleep, and that results into small brain hemorrhages, which results into coma and convulsions. Next slide. Intra-abdominal injuries are the second commonest cause of death. Intra-abdominal injuries are most common because they are the hidden injuries. They may be time that nothing is evident on external part, but there are severe injuries, lacerations in the liver and spleen. Sometimes even rupture of spleen can be seen with no evident or uh, no bigly evident external injuries. So they are most commonly kicks given in the abdomen for and the very common. If I say not sexual abuse, if we consider the physical abuse, the very most common thing is the toilet training. If the child are not accepting the toileting, usually the caretakers, the care providers, if they are left with the maid, they torture these children with the kicking and beating, and that is very much evident and should be noted down while doing the examination. Fractures are very highly specific of child abuse. Forceful pulling and pressing. Just pulling by the hand, shoulder dislocation is very much prominent. Pulling the arms so forcefully that the shoulder is dislocated. Unless and until the child is not facing the physical abuse, shoulder dislocation and these types of pull injuries are not common in any type of fractures or any hair fracture related things. So when there is a pull out injury, child abuse should be kept in mind. Hair pulling, patchy alopecia, the hairs are pulled out and they are not pulled out from the roots, they are broken. When we see and observe the alopecia, there are several lengths of the at different varying lengths the hairs are pulled out. We should have highly suspect that this is not due to alopecia or any disease or pathology, but it is a sign, symptom of child abuse and should be taken in mind. Next slide. This is the type of epiphyseal fracture which is most commonly seen in young childs and kids. Cot death and abandoning of infant. Cot death is usually between 1 to 6 months and maybe below 2 years. And it is not, these are the conditions affecting the infant. And these conditions should be kept in our mind while making the diagnosis of child abuse because they may be due to some pathological condition, unexpected deaths, which are suspected that they were babies which were caught between at the, their nostrils and mouth were just pressed down between the stripes of the cot, and these are unsuspected. It may be also due to infection, cortisol deficiency, hypersensitivity. So these pathological conditions needs to be ruled out before labeling it as physical abuse. Abandoning of infant is a punishable offense under 317 with 7 years fine or both. And children below 12 years are protected under the law. It is proved that the intention was wholly abandoning. It has to be proved that there was no other intention but of abandoning the child. Sexual abuse form a great part of the total abuse, that is 15%. And when we say sexual abuse, the first common thing which it starts from is the sexual play. Viewing or touching of genitalia, buttocks, chest of pre-adolescent children separated by not more than 4 years in which we have seen. It means it was seen that one child which was sexually abused was of 6 years and the other one was of 12 years. So that age difference was also not much. That one is definitely we not should not think that it can be only done by an adult to a kid, but a bigger child can done also a sexually abuse a lower child or a smaller child. Sexual abuse is involving a child in any act. Previous slide, please. In any act that is intended for sexual gratification of an adult. It may be done by any family member acquaintance or by somebody which is least often by a stranger but known to the family. Any activity with a child before the age of legal consent and that is for sexual gratification of an adult or a significantly older child is also included as a sexual abuse. It may be oral genital, it may be genital. If the touch or the play can be played by in a form of a genital rectal form or hand genital, hand rectal, or a hand breast contact. So when we see the proportion of the sexual abuse, we do not see that we will say that 1 out of every 2 child is facing the type of abuse in some or uh, mm, other form. And it's high time that we should think over this and save the childhood and provide them a safe childhood. Now, when we see how are the abusers, they might be servants, caretakers, they might be sometimes teachers, drivers. Usually they are some or the other way, either maybe they be a known person, close known person, or a distant known person. But Very rarely they are from totally stranger one. They are either known person visiting the home frequently, uncles, they may be cousins, it may be a stepfather is seen the rate is very high, 5 times higher than the natural father. And when you see these, the symptoms are you will see this bleeding from the private parts, vagina, penile, or rectal pain, bleeding. It may result into chronic dysuria, enuresis, constipation. They come for the complaint of dysuria and they do not give you the history of abuse. But when there is a history of chronic dysuria and you see the on a rectal examination should be conducted, vaginal examination should be conducted, and they are features of suggestive of sexual abuse, then these cases should not just be treated as a disease but also be notified as a child abuse. Behaviors and behavioral change are usually seen in the specific to the abuse victim. It may be a seductive behavior, it may be a sexualized activity. So when they see some activity or some activity is done on them, usually when they play a role play with some other children, they will imitate that activity. So while playing with other children, if they are playing with a doll, they will show that same activity, playing with that same activity. These small changes in the behavior of the child should be notified and noticed out, and they are very much implemented. They are at the high risk of suicide gestures as and when they grow up. They are very much psychologically disturbed. The mental health is very much disturbed in these victims, and many sleep disorders, withdrawn, stress, school performance suddenly fall down. They have a tendency of running away from this from the home as soon as they see the perpetrators round about them, and they also get a tendency of self-mutilation, of self-humiliation. They feel they are the deprived person, they are the deprived kids. So these are the various behavioral changes that a victim undergoes while facing these abuse. And now with a short overview of the POCSO Act, this Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act came into act in act from 2012, and it covers almost all the aspects of sexual abuse the childs are facing, and we will just go through them in an overview aspect. That it includes the sexual abuse of children, like the inducement or coercion of a child to engage in any unlawful sexual activity. It may be the exploitative use of children in prostitution or in unlawful sexual practices, exploitative use of children in pornographic performances and materials. Next slide. Say the provisions of Act, it includes any type punishment for sexual offences against children are for sexual assault, sexual harassment, and the pornography. And special courts trial have been established under this Act for conducting the court under the trial. The term we will define of each and everything, so how these POCSO Act defines the child. It takes of any person in gender irrespective, male, female, or intersex, and should be below 18 years of age. It also includes sexual assault is defined as touch or makes the child touch with sexual intent any part like vagina, penis, anus, or breast, or does any other act which involves physical contact, even if that is non-penetrative type, even if it is not any physical injury type, that even a touch is defined into the clause of sexual assault. Penetrative sexual assault includes penetration of penis or any object or part of body to any extent into the vagina, mouth, urethra, or anus of a child and makes the child do so with him. Even if the person is not doing it with that and making the child do so, that part of is also covered into the penetrative sexual assault. It also includes manipulation of any part of the body of the child to cause penetration. And it applies even to the mouth, his mouth to applying his mouth to the penis or vagina or anus or urethra of the child, or making the child do the same. Next, we will go into the aggregative sexual assault or aggregative penetrative sexual assault. Offense is called when it is done by a person on a responsible authority position like a police officer, an armed force personnel, or a public servant, or a jail remand homes, and then educational or religious institute, etc., at the place of work or in jurisdictional area. Gang sexual assault, that is includes an assault which is done by one or more persons in which all the person are having a common intention. If even the sexual abuse or sexual assault is given by a one person and the other person were in that moment watching up or just observing that, but with the common intention of sexual assaulting the victim, they all are included into as a gang, and they all are included in the POXO Act and covered as a gang sexual assault. Sexual harassment, which includes sexual intent with using words, sound, gesture, even showing any object, offensive object, or even showing any part of body to be seen or heard by a child. This also includes making the child exhibit any part or own body. It also includes showing any object in any form of media for pornographic purpose. Repeatedly or constantly follows, watches, concerts, directly or through electronic, digital, or any other means, they are all included and covered under the POXO Act as sexual harassment. To promote a child for pornographic purpose is also taken as sexual harassment. And we will say that sexual harassment from the dawn, not only sexual harassment, it starts with the harassment, sexual assault, penetrative or aggravative. All of child are cognizable, non-bailable offences under the section of India IPC code. When we see the punishment, you will see that sexual harassment has given a term of 3 years, which may extend and is under liable to fine also. Using children for pornographic purpose is not only first time it is of imprisonment of 5 years, but if it is repeated, the term increases to 7 years and is also liable to fine. Storage of the pornographic material results into an imprisonment of 3 years under the POXO Act. Sexual assault covers a punishment of 5 years and may extend to more, not less than 3 years, and extend to 5 years and is liable to fine. Aggressive sexual assault is from 5 years, may extend to 7 years, and there is also a huge fine in this. Penetrative sexual assault extends from 7 years and it may be extends up to the 10 years, and it may also extend to the life imprisonment and is liable to fine. Aggregative penetrative, when it is aggressive is involved, under the definition of aggressive penetrative, it is definitely not less than 10 years and may extend, depending on the responsible person, it may extend to life imprisonment and fine. So when we see all these things, we see that we have a POXO Act which covers almost each and every act, each and every child abuse form and pornography, whether it is electronics or digital mode. Everything has been tried to cover up in the POXO Act, and there is I would say, a nice, an ample amount of imprisonment which has been defined under this. But still, if we see the cause and see the ratio in which we are not being able to control the child abuse, that is very significant, because the case which are reported, they are almost the tip of the iceberg. Only the 1% case, I would say, is coming to be reported, and maximum cases are still unreported, maybe due to social stigma, maybe due to social unawareness, maybe just of taking the pride of the family or not on the street, and different issues are there and reasons are there for which we have hold this CME and discussing on this international forum. So thanks to all the listeners for listening and hearing out this PPT. Thank you, Dr. Imran.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving this nice overview. I mean, it is very much informative to us. Now,
Thank
our
you, sir.
next participant is the speaker is Dr. Pragnesh. Dr. Pragnesh is professor and head at AIMS BB Nagar. Yes, Dr. Pragnesh, can you
Dr.
start?
Imran.
Yes.
Yeah, I will share my screen.
Okay, please go ahead. You are the presenter now.
So is my slideshow is visible?
Yes, your slide is visible. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Imran, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, Dr. Richa. Already, Dr. Richa and Dr. Sapini has elaborately discussed various issues of child abuse. My topic is art of parenting versus child abuse. What a choose a right path. So I will just briefly discuss whatever is already covered by Dr. Richa and Dr. Sapini, and then we will discuss just briefly how a parenting can help in preventing a child abuse. So if we see in newspaper, many of the headlines are coming. Parents too busy to talk to their kids. In which study they find that in one study. Second thing, sometimes mothers are unable to hold deep conversation with their children. So somewhere parents are lacking, spending much time to their kids by talking or by giving enough love and care. You can see such things also in newspaper. 80% parents believe are sexually abused. So even in Indian mentality, many times if the boy is there, then they are much more relaxed, and if girl is there, they have more precaution. Mentality is still going on that nothing will happen to the boy, only girl will be abused. So all these misinformation must be removed, because if we know in POXO also less than 18 years boys and girls both are covered. So either boy or girl both are equally vulnerable. Not a safe country for our children. So such headline most of the time our going to school or to the neighbor or to any other's home for playing or something, either the country is safe or not. So such thing will play with our mind. So if we see, basically there are seven type of parental abuse, and mostly many of them are already discussed. So I will just speedily go through it. One is physical abuse, in which we parent we are many time intimidating the child or standing over, showing eyes or raising hand. Isolation, many of the time abandoning or not supporting the child in a dangerous situation. Restraint, some untoward incidents upon lock in the room or bathroom. Aggressive the time, kicking, slapping, and sometimes endanger verbal threat of violence. So all these things are common in almost all the family. Even our childhood also go through this. So this is one type of abuse, that is physical abuse done by parents towards the child. Second one is the mental abuse, in which parents will anger without any child, because father is busy in some work, mother is also busy. If child is asking frequent question, then the reply will be by anger. Lying to the child, doubt is memory. Many of the time we are asking child to lie in front of neighbors, in front of other relatives, and we are creating doubts in his memory. That is also one type of mental abuse. Silent treatment punishment, ignoring the illness of the child, even though we know the child is suffering from fever or any other symptoms, but not giving priority to the children or the illness of the children because of the busy schedule, or ignoring or not giving proper importance. Projection problems, dump on issues on child. Many of the time, whatever the pressure of the hospital or home or business, that reflecting on the child, either on the study of the child or day-to-day activity of the child. So dumping our own issue on the child, that is also one type of mental abuse. Twisting the truth and blaming the child. Many of the time mistakes occur by the parent, but finally they will blame the children that because of you this thing happened or this that thing happened. So all these are the mental abuse that parent has to stop. Neither twisting the truth, neither blaming the child, because child psychology is different, that we have to understand, because it is a growing age, mindset is developing. So in this, whatever we give them, the same we reflect. Sometimes manipulation, make the child fear of rejection. And finally, if nothing will occur, then the parents will play the victim card to control the behavior of the child. So all these things are the tricky situation. Many of the time parents fail to deal, and which results in the mental abuse of the child. One more is the verbal abuse. Extreme in the volume or tone of the voice. Many of the time we are shouting on the child, because childs are younger than us, means lower, they are not going to resist. So because of all these things, parents usually feel dominating over the child, and they feel that whatever they want, the child has to behave in the same way, whatever they want. So that is also, robotic behavior is not a good expectation from the child, because every child is unique. Sometimes no apology, if the fault occur by the parent also, they will not find apology against the child, because it harms the ego of the parents. Blame game, bro hitting, bro beating, The problem is always with the child. So such type of thing, interrogation. Many of the child, wherever the child is going out, excessive interrogation, criticism on small things in the school result, what they have done in the school. So all these things are again becoming a verbal abuse to the child, which is also one type of abuse done by the parent towards the children. Then emotional abuse. So in emotional abuse, there is a nitpicking. Whatever is important to the child is minimized. So if the child want to play at that time, we ask them to study. So we want the child to follow our schedule. Neither we follow the child schedule. So that is also one type of abuse, we can say emotional abuse towards the child. We are molding them according to our mood and our time and our ease, but we are failed to understand the child's mood, time and ease. So these are the things as a parent we have to understand. Sometimes embarrassment or shame. Sometimes we are sharing their private moments, private pictures when they were small, in front of everyone, in front of relatives, in front of neighbors, either in birthday party, without their consent or will. And child may not like many of the time. So all these things we have to understand. As the child will grow, they will feel ashamed of that. Increase anxiety by frequent questioning. Excessive guilt by making them feel excessive guilt that they are responsible. For many times as a parent, we are creating confusion in the child's mind by treating as an extension of the parent. They like they are our extension. They are not separately existed person. As we all know, all are separate individual with separate body, mind, and soul. So we have to respect it. Our nature and child nature may match, may not match. So according to that, we have to also mold ourselves, and we have to avoid from anger or fear. Or neither we have to produce any insecurity in the child's mind. So all these things we have to taken care if we want our child will away from any type of abuse and the brought up will occur in a proper way. If one more we can see, that is the financial abuse. Forbidden access to gift or money which child has received either on his birthday party or by any relative on the Diwali or any other festivals occasion or anything. Now the childs are very intelligent. If we see as the generation is going on, the generations are very intelligent because all the technology are available with them. So they will also come to know, okay, this is the money given by this auntie to me, why the parents are keeping, why they are not giving to me. He may want to spend in the chocolate or something else. Now we have to train them what are the priorities, what are the good things, bad things. So all these things are very important. Sometimes the parents are opening bank account in the child name without even willingness or asking the child. So all this, and sometimes issuing the bill or credit card in the child name, buying certain things in the child name. Or on the other way, they have a strict budgetary allocation to the child on day-to-day activity. If the child is in the boarding school or going to the school for day-to-day, they are capping the amount, which is one way good also. But sometimes it may create issue also. Sometimes career halt by not providing money. So all these things are also present in different socio-economical status. Depending upon the circumstances, parents will decide on behalf of the child. So it may sometimes produce issues. Though this is not much common in the Indian culture, if we can say financial abuse, but it's present in the Western culture. Because in Western culture, the parents demand from the child that they have to take care of their own selves. But here in India, that tradition is yet to come. Then sexual abuse is common. Already Dr. Richa and Dr. Sepini has discussed all these things. Grooming, that is unwanted or embracing sexual act, or molestation, that is unwanted touch to private area of the child. Sometimes rape may occur by relatives or parent to the child. Sadistic behavior, forceful pornographic watching. So all these things can be avoided, and parents can have full control over this. And they can now in school also they are teaching what is good touch, bad touch technique and everything. They are a part of curriculum also, but previously it was not, and many of the time child will suffer. And even sometimes child is knowing they are not able to identify the things, and when the parents are culprit, whom they will complain. So all these are the basic issues that child will face whenever the abuse occur by parents or close relatives. Then it is difficult for child also to handle. Then one more is the spiritual abuse. That is also considered by Western world. Western psychologists are considering that is also spiritual abuse, that every person has the right to follow the whatever the religion they want to follow. But here if we see traditionally, if the parents following one religion, the child will follow the same. And we also want that blind obedience of orders. We sometimes inculcate dichotomous thinking in the child's mind by dividing the people by race, religion, or their likelihood, or by socio-economical status. This is from poor family, this is from rich family. Do friendship with such religious people, don't do friendship with these religious people. So all these are unnecessary thinking as a parent we are many of the time putting in the child's mind that may also sometimes dangerous or bring the child on the wrong track. Sometimes labeling those who are not our friend, we ask the child that they are not good people. So whom we like, we also want from our child that they will also like the same people, and whom we are not liking, we also expect from our child that they will also not like. Sometimes legalistic behavior, strict adherence to the parents command, whatever we follow, whatever in the home, outside the home, prayer, everything we strictly ask them to follow. Sometimes public performance without will, even the child is not willing or not interested, we ask them to pray or sing a song or dance. So all these are the forceful behavior, knowingly or unknowingly many of the time parents are doing on the child, which is also considered as a one type of abuse. Now, segregation, as I already told, that no friends outside the religion. So all these are also important factor, which as a parents we have to understand. So these are the basically seven type of abuse which parents usually do on the child, knowingly or unknowingly. But most of the time we are focusing on only one, that is the sexual abuse, which is more common. And most of the time, as a parent, also we are not aware what to do, whom to report, how we can prevent it, how to deal with the child psychology. So now I will give you the brief idea how we can deal with the such situation and how we can do a good upbringing of our child. If we see the Gigo principle, that is the garbage in, garbage out. So whatever we feed the child, same will come out from his mind. If we put differences of race, religion, or any other hatredness in the child's mind, the child will also become same. Or if we show our angerness, our rage, cheating, lying, so all these things, then child will also learn this. So whatever he see, he will follow in the home as well as whatever the behavior of the parents. Instead of this, we can follow good in, good out. So if we give the good thing to the child from childhood only, then the child will also reflect the same when he become adult and to the next generation. So as a parents, it is our prime responsibility. So whatever the good thing is that, because definitely parents are more experienced compared to the child. So they have to give the proper training and proper discipline to the children. Second thing, we have to identify the bad association and good association of the children. Whenever the child start going in the school or even in the neighbor also, we have to identify which are the bad people and we have to take care from them. Same way we have to teach our child also. Okay, these things we have to take care. Same way in the school, we have to identify who are the good friends, who are the bad friends, and everyone want that his son or daughter have a scholar friends. No one wants that mischievous or naughty students are friends. So all these things as a parent, many of the time we have to take care. We should not force, but we have to guide them properly. On the other hand, we have to promote the good association. So good habits they can develop by good friends, which are not using abusive words, neither using any other unnecessary literature. So all these things as a parent we have to be vigilant whenever the child is going to the school. So that thing as a parent we have to monitor. Second thing, developing good habits in the child. As we all know from our school time, books are best friends. So we can also encourage our children to read the books instead of spending most of the time on the mobile. As we know, in the last 2 years, due to COVID pandemics, all the children are on mobile because online teaching and everything is going on. And now all of them are mostly addicted. Either they are addicted to YouTube or online classes, or many of the time to the social media, Facebook, Twitter, or sometime all this Netflix, Amazon. Now we know that in all these platform there are many content which are not that much good. There are many abusive language, many such type of scene which a child of certain age should not watch. So all these things we have to control it. So if we can divert them, we can divert them from limited use of mobile toward the more reading of books or playing outside game or outdoor games. So such type of good habit parent can develop in their children. So that second thing is diet. This is also as a parent we have to keep in mind that they can stay away from the junk food and have more healthy food. So these are the basic things that we should know. But many of the time parents only encouraging junk food. Like any birthday party is there, they will encourage pizza, burger, all these things, and this will percolate. Then the child will not like the routine healthy food and they will demand all this junk food. So that is also creating problem in the child. And if child will not get such food, then child become angry or child will start. Now you can see in current generation childs are very angry, they started shouting, crying, all this. So child psychology is different. In such scenario, when the child is shouting, parent are also not able to control, and they will start beating or isolating or all these things. So there is a conflict between parents and child relation in current generation, if we can see. So all these things can be avoided. Now, if you can see that we have to teach them how to control their lust. Most of the time, whenever the child will see any fascinated toy or fascinated some food, what they like most, then they have a lust. They want it by a very strong desire to get something by whatever way they want. Now, here also dilemma to the parents. If they satisfy the lust, then it may convert it into the greed. Next time, child will ask more and more. If you don't give, then he will do unnecessary behavior in the public or sometime in the home, so it is difficult to take care. If you don't satisfy, then child become angry. Now you can see many of the time childs are shouting and everything, so difficult to manage all these things, how to control in public place or even at the home. So that is also challenging situation for most of the parents. So that we have to make them understand that how to control the senses, either it is eye, nose, tongue, ear and skin. Whatever the senses is there, they have to be a strong mind, how they can develop it by their level of intelligence. Now small child doesn't have that much intelligence. As they will grow, they will develop that intelligence, which thing is good for me, which thing is bad for me, either smoking is bad or alcohol is bad, that they will understand as the age will grow. But sometimes due to peer pressure or some other pressure, they will switch on addiction or sometimes drugs, or all these issues are common. So as a parents, we have to be vigilant. Second thing is the thought process of entire family. If the family has a good thought process, then it will convert into the good action. And if the family has a good action, then it will convert into good habit, and habit will finally turns into character, and character into destiny. So if we follow, if it is bad, then it will go into the bad destiny. If it is a good, then it will go into the good destiny. So as a parents, we have to monitor. Now I have seen many parents, they are also opening parallelly Facebook account, Twitter account along with the child, and become a friend of the child and monitor the activity. They will not interfere in the child's day-to-day activity, but they will monitor either the child is going in the right direction or not. Every child has a right that they can also enjoy, but just we have to monitor that they will not change the, or they will not go on the wrong track. So managing the mind, if we see how to manage the mind of a child, it is like a role of a key. If we see, key can open the lock if we turn on the right side, or if we turn on the left side, it will close the lock. So every child has a tremendous power, either physical power, mental power, or emotional. Just we have to mold them. So we have to manage the mind. We have to see in which thing they are interested, how they can go further, what are their likes, dislikes, what are their positive points, negative points. So according to that, we have to train them. Like training a mad elephant versus trained elephant, both have a equal power. Now trained elephant will destroy the things, while mad elephant will destroy the things, while trained elephant will serve the purpose. Same with the power of water. If we can flood or dam, if the water is restricted by the dam, it will be useful. Otherwise, as a flood, it will destroy. So all these things we have to manage the mind of a child, and all these thing is not difficult and neither easy. Also, it require art of parenting by learning. Then in such case, we have to take interest in the child's day-to-day activity from taking out some time from our busy schedule. As we know, the Chanakya also told those parents who do not educate their sons are. So, if you know, our prime responsibility is to educate our children. And nowadays, almost all the parents are doing that. They are putting their child in the one of the best school in the city. From all the socio-economical background, we can see, although the schooling is a business nowadays in which they are taking so many fees and everything, even though either middle class or lower middle class, everyone try to put their son or daughter in one of the best school, and they want that their children should not be deprived of the education. So education is power, we can say. Same way what Chanakya told, give unconditional love to your child up to the age of 5 years, because don't expect anything from your child up to the age of 5 years, because up to 5 years they cannot understand. They are just a simple, normal creation of God, neither manipulated, neither inventing lie, nothing. They are just a simple person. So just give your love. From the age of 6 to 15 years, teach them strict discipline and the etiquette by which their character can be built up. Their discipline, their routine will be established. They can understand what is good, what is bad, and their entire life can be set from this age. From 16 years onwards, be their friend. Now you cannot authoritative, neither you can give any command. You have to understand them as your friend. Friend will remain lifelong. Remain as your child lifelong. They will also become adult. then they will also become parents. But if you become friend of your child, then this friendship will remain lifelong. So this thing we have to understand in our day-to-day life. So what parents can do, these are the basic important things that we have to inculcate. Give time to your children, which is lacking nowadays in all the family. If we can see, when the parents are coming from the job, they will just busy themselves in the mobile. Everyone is looking down in the mobile, child is also watching mobile or TV, so that talkativeness is not there. Sharing of feelings, whatever happen in the school, whatever happen in the college, that sharing is required. Teach the child discipline thoughtfully. If the child is not accepting directly, give some example so they will understand. Examine your behavior towards child. Introspection and see how you are, which language you are using in front of child, how you can control your anger, how you can control your movement. Teach children their rights. There are certain rights that children have. So teach them. So they will be understand by educating them. So education is very much important. As a parent, we must know what is child abuse, either from the relative, either from the neighbor. So we must have idea what is child abuse, and we have to support the child abuse prevention program, whatever run in your society or surroundings. Identify the signs of child abuse, either it is physical abuse, sexual abuse, or emotional abuse, and you must know how to report and whom to report such type of child abuse. How you can prevent it or control it. If something happen in the school, you can report to the school. If something happen in the family, you have to report it. Take the confidence of the child, then and then he will report to you. If you just shout them, angry on them, they will not come second time and report to you, because he or she will feel like that parents are shouting, so he will not report to you. So be friends and invest your love. So these are the basic parenting skills which I want to enlight on this topic. So thank you very much for gentle listening. That's it from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Pragnesh, for this very interesting and very nice talk by you. I have two kids also, so I was carefully listening to you very much for this. Now, with
Thank you,
this,
Dr.
we will go to our next speaker, that is me. So let me start my presentation. Just give me a second. Okay, so the topic of my talk is legal and ethical issues in child professionalism. Actually, I suggested the topic, very specific topic, which is related to the child dancing, the participation of children in dance competitions. If you see that many kids nowadays, there is a craze rather that many small kids are taking dance classes and dance competitions. So there's an increasing trend of these kind of activities, and you see on the telephone as well, this television as well, that you see very small kids who are dancing and they are doing acts, and at times they are compromising with their body as well. So I want to highlight one case here. In Mumbai, there's a 12-year-old girl collapsed on the stage during perform and dies. There's a there's a case of sudden death. And according to the forensic experts, where the girl's body was sent for postmortem, she suffered no physical injury, and had no medical history, nothing else. Deceased name is Anisha Sharma. Lived with his family near in Mumbai. So I want to raise one question here. Who is responsible for the death of Anisha Sharma? So this is my concern, that who is responsible for the death of this 12-year-old innocent girl? The child himself, we can easily say that the child has put himself or herself in this situation in which she is uh, she suffered this loss. The parents who put her child in this kind of situation, or the organizers of the event who are motivated by some financial benefits. We can say that sometimes the instructor, but all of them will deny their involvement. The parents will say, we are not intended to kill our child. The organizers will say that, okay, so she has willingly participated in the event. The instructor will say that I was the instructor and I don't know where she wanted to participate. The healthcare system, can we label the healthcare system is responsible for the death of Anisha? Or any approving agency who approved this sort of event to be held? Somebody have to claim the responsibility, either one of them or all of them. Apart from this tragic incidents, we increasingly see that there are lots of injuries that are suffered during this dance classes or competitions. Professor Damir Sikolev from Croatia find that 53% of dance reported the occurrence of musculoskeletal injuries. Dancers suffered on an average of 0.7372 injuries over the body period, giving an injury rate of 280%. So it is now evidence based that because of this dancing, the small kids are suffering from injuries. So gender and dance style were not having significant factor. High risk of injuries are evident in older and more experienced dancers. This is another uh, special finding by them. And he very well explained all the prevalences in various prevalence of the musculoskeletal injuries in uh, rural, urban, and rock and roll um, um, children. So we can see that the there's an increased prevalence of these kind of injuries in dance in the children who are going for dance. And again, one more graph showing. So this is just to show this graph. My intention is to just show you that this is not a hypothesis that the injury rate is increased. So various types of injuries that are suffered are listed, like ankle sprain, Achilles tendonitis. These are the sort of injuries that are usually suffered by these participants. Hazardous child labor. So I consider it as a hazardous child labor because it is fitting into the category of hazardous work. Many times the steps in during the dance are very complicated. Child abuse, as my colleagues have already explained, is the physical, sexual, and emotional. So this is a form of physical abuse rather, and I can label it easily as a child labor. So forcing the child for dancing is a kind of child labor. Maybe the parents are sometimes involved in it, and nobody cares about the child sufferings. The child may have physical injuries, that is evidence based. There may be permanent musculoskeletal changes because of increased muscular activity in the child. rapid change in the behavior. The child becomes behaving like an adult, maybe psychologically, because he is now a responsible child. Rather, the tenderness of his childhood is compromised. Depression may be there. Social recognition and boycott may be there, because social recognition because of the uh, rewarding performances, and boycott if the child loses the competition. And of course, it has a bad impact on the studies, as well as there is poor performance of child in the schools. Some factors that are promoting the child abuse, this kind of child abuse, are financial benefits of the patients and the organizer. Both the parents as well as the organizers have financial benefits with these types of competition. Glamour and fame. So many times it is a very glamorous life. If you see the child shows in the TV, it is very glamorous. There are lots of attractive advertisement. Organizers of the competition promote and shows this as a skill that there must be in a child. Parents sometimes believe that it's a shortcut to success or easy money. Lack of understanding by child as a result of age, and times the child is not able to understand what is going on with him and what is happening with him. He is just doing something good act for his parents, and the parents may sometimes sees that he or she is the one who will always follow the guidelines given by the parents. So it's a kind of ethical dilemma, and there is a violation of child rights. Child rights that are violated in this condition, as per UNICEF, this UNICEF, that best interest of the child. So the best interest of the child is compromised in this condition. Respect for child's view. So we least bothered about asking the child what is his views, and we are least bothered whether the child want to do this competition or not. Freedom of thought is compromised. The child is forced to think about it. Protection of privacy. So privacy is also compromised, because these competitions are usually performed in public. Children with disabilities. So sometimes they are used in the dance competition, and not only used, they are more attractive and glamorous for the dance shows. Rest, play, culture, and arts. These are, and protection from harmful work. So this right of the child is also being compromised here, and sometimes the sexual abuse are also seen in these situations. So this is basically an issue that is to be raised, that the increased prevalence of dance and glamour associated with it, the children are also suffered by that. So with this note, I can leave this to you to think over it, and the references are there. So I think with this, I finish with my talk. And now, can Dr. Peter Kralt, Dr. Peter Kralt will give us a presentation on the virtual autopsy. Welcome, Dr. Peter. How are you?
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Can you share your presentation, please?
Yes. Does it work?
Okay. So do you want me to help you out?
Let me just
Okay, let me open for you. Don't worry.
yeah, I think the thing is I've changed my presentation. So
Changed?
yeah, I made some changes, but
Okay. Actually, that's why I asked you to submit the presentation. So this is, you can see your presentation now?
mm,
Yes, you can start. I can change presentation for you. The slides I can change for you.
I just have I don't have any. Mm. Let me see if I can.
Can you see your presentation, Doctor?
No, I can't. I can't. See,
I think it is. I'm sharing it. You are now the presenter. So just share your presentation.
yeah, I'm trying.
Just click on share. And you can share the whole screen. Share a screen and then it will work.
Are you able to see it now? Are you able to see my screen now?
You can share your screen.
Yeah, I did. Mm. Okay, let's try. Okay. Can you see it now?
No, it is, we are not visible.
Mm. I don't. Um, Can you see me now?
No, your slides are not visible.
I can't see anything at all.
So just I'm opening your slide from here. Whatever you
Yes,
have
that's fine.
provided. I think it is visible. You can continue with the showing you are reconnecting.
I can't see anything. I don't understand this.
Hey, Dr. Krat, I think things are not working at your place, so we can go with our next participant.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
You can once you are ready, you can just send me a message.
Okay, yeah. Let's proceed. I'll see.
Anjesh Mittal.
सर जी सर जी सर कवर कर दिया था जैसे कि है एकदम क्लास
Anjesh Mittal.
जी सर यस सर
Please go ahead with your presentation. Yes, please go ahead.
So am I visible? My presentation
Yes,
is
yes.
visible or not?
Yes, it is visible.
It's not visible at my side actually. Coming something different.
You have to add on read mode.
Okay, sir. Read mode.
The read mode. Your slides are visible, okay?
Sir, something read mode. Sir, where is
Anjesh, don't worry. Let me do it for you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Anjesh Mittal, PG resident at Department of Forensic Medicine and Toxicology, SN Medical College, Agra. It's my privilege to present a case report on multiple homicidal steps by screwdriver. Please change the slide. Under the guidance, thank you. Introduction, the traumatic injury is the sixth leading cause of death worldwide, and interpersonal violence is one of the major contributor, in particular regarding injury to the head and neck. Screwdrivers are fortunately only rarely used weapon. However, when we used in an assault on the face, the concentration of force into the small area at the tip of these rigid tool may enable penetration into the facial bones. Once through the bones, the shaft of the screwdriver may then pivot around the entry point. This case report is the case of multiple stabbing over the face and a stab over abdomen with homicidal intention. And this report characterized the feature of the injury that may be inflicted by screwdriver due to their ready availability, ease of handling, and sharpness. Screwdrivers are surprisingly rarely used in fatal assault. So please change. Now the case report. A 42-year-old male was brought to the emergency department at SN Medical College with the alleged history of physical assault. On examination, it was found to have multiple penetrating stab wounds over the face by a screwdriver and a stab wound over the abdomen. Patient was admitted under surgery department for emergency laparotomy and facial dressing. CT scan was advised to analyze the extent of injury. Then the patient was referred to the higher center for the further management. So please change. Now the result is the most striking feature of this injury were the multiple puncture wounds showing a cruciate shaped consistently measuring approximately 5 into 5 mm with varying depth of 1 to 2 centimeter. So please change. That is spread over the face. See, there is a cruciate shaped mark present all over the face. Nearly many marks were present on the patient face, like and the arrowhead is showing this. The previous slide, please. It's a cruciate shaped pattern. The previous slide, please.
Previous,
Sir, previous slide.
this one?
So previous one, sir, is not changing actually. Previous slide. Before the figure.
Okay, it may be taking time.
Okay, sir.
It is visible. Yes, Anjesh, it is visible. You can go ahead.
Its result is showing us, yes, sir. A puncture wound over the abdomen showing intestine out of the ostia created by the puncture wound. Sir, change the slide, please. Sir, next slide, please. Yeah, sir, this is the CT scan that we have ordered. The second figure is showing the maxillofacial injury, and the first figure is showing the broken molar, third molar. See, so please change the slide. Now this is the figure 3 is showing a stab wound over the abdomen with the perforated intestine. Intestine is perforated, see, protruding out of the ostia created by the wound. So please change. Now this is to explain the type of screwdriver heads. One is single-headed and another is two-shaped headed. Which type of screwdriver was used in the inflicting the injury? It can easily depicted. Now the discussion part. Screwdriver can be used to be inflicted deep major puncture wound that may penetrate bone including the skull and cause lethal organ injury. Although it has been suggested that screwdriver cause typical incisive wound, this depends greatly on the sharpness of the tip. In this case report, the wound is depicting the cruciate head screwdriver and the shape of the wound is cruciate. This case report is eye-catcher because of the rare pattern of facial assault by screwdriver with multiple attempts. The intestine got perforated and protruded out of the ostia of the wound. So please change. Now, the previous study, Nikombo et al. Conducted the study showing the pattern of the injury sustained in assault and was found that 77% of examined victims sustained head and neck injury. with most of them are facial injury. But the mechanism of injury were different and no injury were given by the screwdriver. So please change. Screwdriver have been rarely reported in the literature in the case of fatal assault that have mostly often involved penetrating trauma to torso or head. This multiple attempt of injury by screwdriver make this case report unique. It shows the brutality and it should also be kept in thought that alleged may be suffering from psychiatric illness. So please change.
Yes, I'm changing.
Conclusion part, this case demonstrated the systemic recording of the injury showed that the exact nature of the weapon that was used in the assault. In case where the weapon has been removed from the scene, there may be an extremely useful finding in focusing investigation on can looking for the screwdriver rather than another type of sharp object. Also, CT scan is proved to be useful to detect the depth of the injury and fracture associated with it, although with the complication due to injury. So it is required to integrate the radiological investigation with the conventional method of medical legal examination. So please change. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you,
sir.
Rishabh. Thank
Thank you, sir.
you. Rishabh Yadav. Rishabh, are you ready? Rishabh? Anchal Jalwa?